Hello, I'm Crafty Patty. The last video I made for you was this knitted ribbed hat. And since then, I've had many requests on could you knit one for a baby size and could you knit one for a child size. So I put my head together and worked that out for you. So now we have a pattern to knit for the whole family, mom, dad, child, and baby. So here's the mom and here's baby. I think that's really adorable to have the matching hats. So I've worked out the pattern for this. We've already got this one. And you'll be able to knit both of these with one ball of the Bernat Softee Baby Chunky. For dad, I made one in black, and this was one ball of the Bernat Softee Chunky, not the baby, just the plain Chunky. This is actually a Chunky 6, and this is a 5. So I've gone up a little bit heavier for dad and child. This is all I had left over. So for an adult male hat, this will give you just enough to probably bring it up to a 1-inch rim on the bottom here. Or you can choose to just wear it straight down like so. If you want this to be a bit longer, then you might have to buy 2 balls of the black, because this is all I had left over. I could have got maybe a couple more rows, but I stopped. So even with the 1-inch, it is just fine. It fits me, and it's got lots of stretch, so it's going to fit dad too. Now, the child size, I made it so the rim would come up anywhere from 2 to 3 inches. That will, again, be able to fit different size children. And again, there's lots of stretch in these hats, so it gives you lots of options to knit from a smaller head to a larger size head. I also made up a handy little chart for you, which will tell you the approximate sizes of a baby's, adult mom, child, adult dad, their circumference of their head sizes. That will help you to know when you have your finished size of hat, whether it's going to fit. This one here, when the hat is lying flat, it measured 10 inches. When I stretch it out, it measures 16. You want a bit of stretch so that it'll stay on your head. So you see here, this one will fit a 13 to 16 inch head size, and that's what it stretches out to. And I've done the same for all other sizes. I've included also the yarn I used and the needles I've used and how many stitches I cast on for each of these hats. You'll notice on the bottom I put multiple of 4. So let's say you want to change this up again and you want to maybe use a bulky 4, which is a smaller yarn, and then it won't be the same size. So let's say, for instance, up here, you might want to cast on 56 stitches, adding another 4, so you've got a little bit more circumference to fit the hat. Or let's say this one down here, 60 stitches and the hat was too big, and you want it smaller, so then minus 4 stitches or 8 stitches, depending on how big you want the hat. So there you go. I hope that little chart helps you somewhat and it's useful. So I've already shown you basically the pattern that will actually work for all of these hats. So if you're comfortable with just looking at the pattern, I've divided it in half. I've divided it so we've got mom and baby on one pattern, and I've also made another pattern for you that will work for dad and child. So feel free just to pop into the description box below. That's that little tiny arrow to the bottom to the right of the video. Click on that. The full description will come up, or it might say the words show more. go ahead. If you're great at knitting, you can just go ahead and fill your boots and go right to the pattern. Or stay with me and I will show you how to knit the baby hat step by step if you're more comfortable with watching as you go. For these 3 hats for Dad, Mom, and Child, I use a 16-inch number 10 or 6 millimeter bamboo circular needles. And for baby's hat, I came down to a US 4 3.5 millimeter circular needles, and they look like this with not much in between, but you need to have it small so you can knit from this side of the needle to your other needle on the other side, so you can't have much in between. But it looks like you're knitting with a couple little toothpicks, but it works. Okay, let's get started with our baby hat. We've got our Bernat Softee Baby Chunky, and we've got our little 11-inch US 4 or 3.5 millimeter circular needles. And starting with our slip knot, just a little circle that goes over. Yarn comes through that hole. I pick it up with my thumb, slide it onto your needle, slip it up as it is a slip knot. And we're going to do a knitted cast on, and we're going to cast on 52 stitches. So inserting our right needle into the left, finding our long strand, not the short one, wrapping around our baby finger and up on our index for good tension, wrapping around, bring that through, but don't take it off, and we've made 1 stitch. So again, we're going to bring that left needle into the right one. We're going to wrap around, bring it through, and we've now made 2 stitches. I'm sorry I've got white on white, but that's the color of my needles. Again, into the stitch on the right, wrap around, bring it through, and continue on until you have 52 stitches. And I'm on number 50. Here's number 51. And to make 52, we just come into this last stitch on our right needle, slip it off on the left, and we have formed number 52. All right, so we've got our 52 stitches cast on the needle. We're going to make sure that our wool is coming off the right needle. So let's just turn this around so the right needle has the wool coming off from it, from the ball of wool. And now we want to come in and we want to make sure that it's not twisted. So just come in and make sure all your stitches are facing into the middle. No twists. Okay, so once you've got that, we're going to start knitting. And our pattern is knit 2, purl 2. I'm just pushing up these stitches on the needle here because sometimes that first row can be a little bit on the tight side. And now let's just find our first stitch, which is right here. All right, so then into that first stitch on the left needle, wrapping around like you would a normal knit stitch. And now we're going to actually let that come off the needle, and you've joined. That's as easy as it is. You've joined it. So now we're just going to knit around in a circle. So our pattern is knit 2. So we've knit 1. Here's our second knit. Now we need to bring our wool forward so we can do our purl. So into the next stitch and doing a purl stitch. That one comes off and one more purl. So we've already got our wool to the front, so we're ready to go for our next purl. And there's our next purl stitch. And off it comes. And our pattern is knit 2, purl 2. So we've got to bring that yarn back to the back again, and we're ready to do 2 more knit stitches. And continue all the way around till you get back to where your yarn where you've started. So knit 2, purl 2, 52 stitches all the way around. And what you'll find on your very first row, these stitches might be a little bit tight, so just keep working them around and bringing them up on the actual needle instead of on the wire, bringing them around, and continue knitting your knit 2, purl 2. And my last one. And I can tell I'm on my last one because there's the start of my yarn. Okay, so just carry on. You're starting your second round with 2 knit and continuing with our pattern of 2 knit and 2 purl. And I'll see you when I've got 6 inches knit, and then we'll start our decrease. I have now knit my 6 inches, or approximately 15 centimeters, and you measure from the bottom of your needle. And now let's start our decreasing. And let's just make sure you're in the right position at the beginning of your round, and you can tell by where your yarn is at the bottom. You can just follow that right up, and I know that I'm starting with my 2 knits. So the first decrease row is going to be knit 2 together and purl 2. So let's find our first 2 stitches. Here's our first and our second. So we're going to go and grab both of those knit stitches. And I'm sorry if it looks awkward because I'm trying to do this on camera and watch what I'm knitting at the same time. So there's my 2 stitches, knit 2 together. And now we're going to come around with the yarn to forward, and we're going to purl the next 2 stitches. Purl 2. There's 1. There's 2. You're going to continue that until you're back to the beginning of your round. And if you don't want to follow this all the way up every time around, you can always come in with a little guide. I just use bobby pins, and this will tell me that I'm at the start of my round. And so this is where the previous row, we actually knit these 2 together, and that's why now we're only knitting 1. So knit 1, purl 2. And so here's our knit 1, and we'll forward, yarn forward, and purl 2. And complete, and continue that pattern till you get all the way around and back to your marker. And I'm back to my marker, and my next decrease round is knit 1 and purl 2 together. So here's our knit 1, yarn forward, and there's 1, and there's 2, and purl those together, and continue that until you've gone all the way around back to your marker. And I'm back to my marker, and my next row is just knit 1 and purl 1 all the way around. It's my knit 1 and purl 1, and continue that all the way to the end of your round. And I'm back to the beginning, and our last decrease row is knit 2 together. So even though we've got a knit and a purl, that's just fine. We're going to grab them both together, the purl and the knit, and we're going to knit that together. And we're going to work around the whole row, the whole round, doing the same thing, grabbing 2 and knitting them together. And this decrease row is a little on the tight side, and this yarn tends to break up and separate, so I don't know if you've used the same yarn, but if you're finding it to be a little bit tricky, then what you can do is just go in and grab the purl stitch, make sure you've got all that yarn in there in case it's separating, and then just push that needle back and grab your knit stitch, and hopefully that will help you a little bit to grab that all and knit the 2 together. And if it's starting to feel tight to get those last 2 done, then you can also just come in to your knitting here and just bring your wire so it's like this, and then that will force all these stitches here to come up close into your needle here, and that will make it a little bit easier for you to grab your last two for your decrease. And for our last row, just knit all the way around, and again, because it's getting a little tighter on the needles, just grab the wire and just go like this and have the excess coming down, and that will help you to finish up our last knit row. So again, all knit stitches. And once you've got a few done, just keep working them around and bring them up on the needle so you can get the long knit. And now we only have 13 stitches left on the needle. We're just going to cut our yarn off. Leave enough if you want to sew on a pom-pom, or just enough for sewing up the top of your hat. Attach your large-eyed needle, and our thread is on this side, so we're going to start threading our yarn through this side so we can go around in a clockwise fashion. So here's the first one, and we can just keep pulling them off as we sew them through. That's our first one, and we'll grab the next one. And then we're going to ease that one off. And the next one. Make sure you don't lose the one like I just about did. And you can take more than one at a time if you're more comfortable with that. And we'll grab this one too so I can get rid of this needle. Grab these ones. And one left for this needle here. Grab that one so we can get rid of that needle. And let's come around to the other side now and grab these ones. And if you find it easy, you can always bring these down onto the wire, so it's easier to come in here and grab the stitch. Good. Just grab the last four. All right, so I've got them all on there. So then I'm just going to remove my needles. Just going to bring my hand up in here so you can see what I'm doing. And so now we're just bringing all these together so it forms a nice tight circle. And then I'm going to keep going around. Here's my last one here. And I'm going to go into these stitches again. And we'll just cinch that up a bit tighter. Oops, let's get rid of that pin. And that will allow you to be able to cinch that up nice and tight and close up the circle. And carry around, go through a few more. Okay, that's nice and secure. And then I'm just going to come down into the center here, and we'll tie it off on the other side. Let's just reverse our hat here. And I'll just come into one of the stitches here, or a couple, and then through that loop. And we can do that one more time. Come into the next stitch and come through the loop. Pull it tight, and then we're just going to weave this little end in. And I always like to go one way, give it a pull, and then come back the other way. And I know it's nice and secure. And cut it off. Reverse it back. And all you've got left to do is tie in our little first cast on yarn. And you might notice it's very slight, but you can see if you pull it on this way that this side is a little bit further down than this one. So all you have to do is just come up into this stitch here, and I'm just going to come in like this, and I'm going to come through the loop, and that will help to just bring our sides together. Now you can't even tell it's different. So finish this off again, and we'll just come up through a few of these stitches right here, weaving in and out. And then back the other way. Give it a little tug, cut it off, and up comes the little brim. And there's your darling little baby hat to match Mummy. And that's the amount of yarn that we had left over from this one ball of Bernat Softee Baby Chunky.